Welcome to our 44th episode of In Conversation with Convergence. My name is George Evans, and this is a monthly podcast where we feature our clients and special guests. We help you get to know the market leaders and some of the top issues facing the industry. I have a great guest today. I'm joined by Steve Millner. Steve is the CEO and co-founder of Gen2 Fund Services. Steve is a recognized expert in the fund administration business. And Steve, I just really want to welcome you. I know you did a podcast with us a long time ago, but welcome back. And a lot has transpired since we last talked on a podcast.
Thank you, George. It's good to see you. I appreciate speaking with you and your fellow watchers.
Yeah, thank you. So Steve, let's even though I think everybody knows Steve Millner, right? Maybe everybody doesn't. And I thought maybe you could start with just giving our audience a little bit about your kind of background, your pedigree in general.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm a CPA by background, but haven't done that in a long time. I've been involved in the private markets space for over 25 years. Launched the first kind of institutional grade PE fund administrator in the early 90s. That grew to be quite substantial. It's still in existence. It's one of the largest PE fund admins in the world. As part of that, we developed a technology company that I helped found called Investment Cafe. That's the limited partner reporting system that's part of eFront and now part of BlackRock. And in 2009, we put the band back together with some of my colleagues and formed Gen2.
Yeah. And what was that? Probably about 2009? Is that, do I have my dates
Yeah,
right?
2009. In fact, this is our 15-year anniversary. I'm actually going, you can see that I'm in Florida right now. I'm heading back to New York tomorrow as we start. We're going to have the big celebration, bringing in our teams from around the world to celebrate 15 years.
No, it's a great milestone. So, listen, there's about 650 fund administrators in the world today, if you can believe it. And again, it's very much the 80-20, probably 90-10 rule in terms of market share. But take our viewers through kind of a quick tour of Gen2, kind of who you guys are, where you come from in those 50 years, and really what you look like now as a global firm.
Yeah, sure. So, Gen2 is focused exclusively on private markets. So what's private markets for us? It's buyout, it's credit, it's real estate, it's infrastructure, it's fund of funds. So we stay really in the private side of the world, and that expertises us. So we have just one singular focus. I would say, we focus really on mid-market to upper mid-market firms, typically targeting fund sizes of 500 million and up. Large funds to us are 20 billion and up, so we play in the higher levels. We are considered a large administrator. I'm happy to say on Convergence we're number one.
Yeah, that's right.
But we actually take care of globally over $1 trillion of assets, so quite substantial. We have over 1,700 employees around the world, 14 offices, and that's pretty much what Gen2 is all about.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you guys have, from my opinion, and as you know, we watch them all, right, and do business with a lot of fund administrators, but staying true to what you're good at and just the trajectory I think you've been on is pretty impressive. There's been some interesting kind of investor transactions, right, over the last a year or two, and love to hear, I'd like our audience to kind of hear about that from your perspective, like who they are, why you guys did that, what is that, what are the kinds of things that enables you to do?
Yeah. Well, we've been on an interesting journey. As you know, we've been kind of owner operators for a pretty long time. And we realized that the opportunity we had in front of us, frankly, surpassed our wallet sizes, and that we needed to bring more capital in to take advantage. So at the end of 2020, General Atlantic and HG both invested in Gen2. And that was really a catalyzing event. Really gave the opportunity, the financial resources to take advantage of the opportunity that we had. At that point in time, you may recall, the business was founded with Norman Lieben and Steve Alicia, as you know, longtime partners of mine.
Yeah.
I drew the straw and became CEO. And with some capital in our pockets, we really took advantage of the opportunity. We used our capital to do strategic acquisitions. There are a number of ways to kind of accelerate when you have capital, and we felt like we had a great brand and we had very strong organic growth. But strategically, we could make a couple of acquisitions to really enable ourselves. And so we made an acquisition in 21. We made another large transaction that we just recently closed this year internationally to increase our capabilities globally. And we did two technology plays that I'll talk a little bit more about later.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. We were probably one of the first ones to bring third-party capital in the fund admin space. And, now you're seeing quite a bit of that activity.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. We, as we can look in detail at any administrator's kind of growth and decompose it, right? And look at that over time. So we're doing a lot of work for PE firms, the large consultants who are even assisting them in looking at those types of investments, right? Because it's a very different story when someone's grown through just acquisition than someone who's kind of grown organically and through good sales and good new logos, right? And you can tell it very, very different story. What's also interesting is even the publicly traded administrators, right, out there. We're doing a lot of work with portfolio management groups who want to look at how these books are taking shape, right? And so we do a lot of that. So Steve, on the how about on the hiring front too, with acquisition and with expansion, and we don't have to get into specific names unless you want to, but the types of people that you've drawn. That you've brought into the organization, because I think the team just, from what I see, just keeps getting stronger, and you're bringing in a lot of senior talent. I'm just interested in kind of your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So, as part of our journey, and when we brought the outside capital, the institutional capital in, part of the ability to kind of enable growth was we needed to build out a more robust executive leadership team. And so that was really the first line of focus. And in that regard, we brought in a chief people officer, a chief commercial officer. We brought in a new chief financial officer. We brought in a chief administrative officer. And then when you've got all the chiefs lined up, then you start to build out that second layer of management. And so that journey's taken a couple of years to kind of, I would say, hone. But I really like the team we have, because you can't, we've grown quite rapidly. The asset class as a whole has grown, and we've outgrown the market. And you need the right people in the right seats in order to support growth. And so we made those investments fairly early, and I think they're starting to pay off. And so, we've got a lot of people in what, I'd call, and you'd call, the C-suite roles.
Yeah.
But then we've also, brought in, the role players where they need to be. So we've got a new head of investor services. We've got, a new person now in regulatory and compliance. We just hired a new controller. Today's her first day. So, we're active in the market. And so that's kind of at the executive level. The other thing we do, and you probably hear a lot about this from your clients, is sourcing talent to do the work. So we hire between 100, 150 recent graduates every year. You don't learn private equity in college, so we have to make them. And so we've created a school within Gen 2. We have two actually, almost college-like classrooms, one in Colorado, we just now in one in New York, and one in Europe, where we actually train. We have a whole curriculum, and we train, fund accountants to grow up to become managing directors over time.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, that's in some cases that can be, it sounds a little big four-ish, right, in terms of the university type concept. But I think it's necessary, because I don't think you do learn to your point, that some of that stuff in a college setting.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about, some of your acquisitions, and um, so I'm assuming for our listeners, they were, you said a couple technology plays, but some of them were also other fund administrators. Is that how you define the what you've done so far?
Yeah, yeah. So a little more specificity. We acquired a regional West Coast administrator in 21 uh, that had really a high quality shop, a retiring founder. DNA was very similar, kind of came out of a CPA firm environment.
Yeah,
There was about 120 boots on the ground in Denver, and we've since grown that to probably 180. And so that's really was a good acquisition. We have a large client base on the West Coast. And so we wanted to get our people closer to the clients. And so Colorado seemed to be a good spot to
yeah,
do that.
yeah.
And so that was our first acquisition. We bought a small tech company a couple of years later. I think it was 23-ish. And that was, might have been 22, excuse me, an LP portal. As you know, we had Investment Cafe in another life. So, we understood and understand how important LP portals are to clients.
Right.
And so we acquired a small portal provider out of Vancouver, and we basically re-engineered the portal to be, among, the peer group. And because clients want to buy, a whole series of services from us. George, when you get past the really large firms, the smaller firms are long in terms of deal makers and capital raisers. They're fairly short operationally in terms of talent. And so those clients really want to use a fund administrator like Gen2 to provide a whole range of services. I've kind of, and you've been watching the journey. There was Gen2 1.0. That's kind of classic fund administration.
Yeah.
We've embarked on what we call Gen2 2.0, which really now takes fund administration but adds other capabilities like an LP portal. We built a data and analytics tool. Earlier this year, you'll be one of the first to hear about this. We acquired a very large e-subdoc platform. I believe it's the largest in the United States. Again, to give our clients a more complete service with one vendor. We get to integrate all these things.
Yeah.
Clients get to work with one provider. And what are we doing with all this? Well, we're getting to that thing called digital data, where
Yeah.
we're able to get LP data when they sign up a subdoc. We can onboard them fairly quickly through an automated AML KYC capability. We can put them right on the portal and we can do a capital call. We could probably do all that in less than a week today. Where that
Yeah.
used to take a month, we can get it done in a week. We've actually done it in 3 days,
Yeah.
but you don't really want to do that. But we're really increasing our capabilities. And then the most recent acquisition was our largest acquisition was in Europe. Our clients are large and they are looking to grow, globally. And so Europe is the next port of call for us. We had an office in Luxembourg, but by virtue of this acquisition, we added about 500 people in Europe onto the platform. Good mid-market client base, but it also gave us jurisdictional capability. Besides Luxembourg, now we're in Ireland, we're in London, and we're in the Channel Islands.
Yeah.
So we're able to deliver, a more robust or comprehensive service offering to our clients.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think the caliber client you have is going to warrant, right, that kind of expansion. Let me ask you this, and just curious what your reaction to this is, and not looking for the secret sauce, right, at Gen 2, but we're seeing a lot of administrators, the traditional play, to your point, was more administration, more scale, maybe add geography, right? But now we're seeing a lot of administrators looking at lots of bolt-on products, right? Besides technology, so cyber, managed IT, fractional CFO, CCO services, compliance in general. Just do you have a view on that without tipping your hand and just as you're seeing some of your competition out there, kind of getting in some of those businesses and trying, to your point, maybe bring as much product from one vendor, right, to an advisor as they can.
Yeah. So look, we're seeing exactly what you are. I think your observations are spot on. For us, our core competency is fund administration. So every decision we make is informed around fund administration. So putting tech products around fund administration resonates with us. Some of the other areas might be interesting. Others, frankly, are a little too far afield for us in terms of capability. Let's say managed IT. That's outside of our skill set and our core competency. We think that's better dealt with by other experts.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of what happens in our world is clients ask us. We get a lot of demand pull, and so a client says, "Hey, what are you going to do with subdocs? It's a pain in the neck to do these PDFs. So investors are frustrated by that. We've been doing it the same way for 25 years now. What do we do?" That informed our thinking to say, "Hey, e-subdocs is a real thing. We ought to get in and get on it and get on it in a big way." So I think the fun part about what you see and what we get to do is this is a really evolving market.
Yes.
And I think it's my job and our job to make sure that we can provide real high quality services, but meaningful services that help our clients scale. To me, that's the big deal. If you look at our book, and I know you do, you'll see fund one at a client's becomes fund two, becomes fund three. We keep the clients, but our clients are getting bigger and bigger. The fund sizes are larger. They're getting more complex. We got to be shoulder to shoulder with them. And so we need to make sure we have, that whole, catalog of services that's going to enable them. That's really what informs us.
Yeah, no, I think that's well said. I mean, listen, if I had to tell you, if I had to make a prediction, I think compliance, however you want to define it, is going to continue to be absorbed by the fund administration marketplace, right? Because it's just a bunch of small shops out there, and other than the big one or two who I won't name, I think personally think there's a vast opportunity for fund administrators bringing, some type of robust compliance to their client base. So, Steve, if you had to talk about 24 as we're sitting here on December 2nd, and I'll ask you the same question about 25, right? What do you think the biggest two or three accomplishments of Gen 2 were in 24? And then we can finish up with just, your view of 25. And I'm always interested too in your views on kind of for both like market headwinds and market tailwinds, right? What's kind of at your back and kind of what's blown in your face, right? And interested in your perspective.
Yeah. So, 24 is a pretty interesting year. The fundraising market's been tough.
Yeah.
Especially on mid-market, upper middle market, even large. Tough in the sense that duration to raise money is extended. It's harder. And so, it was interesting in supporting our clients through that period. In the early part, at 23 rolling into 24, the emerging manager market just died. It was remarkable how abruptly it shut down. And we have a fairly important emerging manager platform. I think that's probably the largest in the country. And we really like that business, but it just stopped for us.
Yeah.
In the second half, it's picked up. We're seeing in fact, today, right before the call, I just heard we won $1.5 billion emerging manager. So I'm in a good mood, George. Thank you. So, it was interesting in the sense the market was probably a little slower than it's been in the past in terms of growth. But, at Gen 2, there's always something cooking. And so as I shared with you earlier, in April of 24, we closed on the Pressbridge transaction, which was our European transaction. That was over a year in the making. It actually took us 9 months to get regulatory approval. And so that was a big event for Gen 2. It kind of transformed our business. And in June, we closed on that eSubdoc platform.
Yep.
So 2 big transactions that I think are transformational. The other one I'll share with you because it literally just closed last week it's slightly on point. I think you'll get, where I'm coming. So we had the opportunity to refinance our debt. We have private credit. We refinanced our debt, the syndicated loan market. Here's what was interesting. We had to get rated. We went to rating agencies, and then we went to about 150, I would say institutional investors to syndicate these loans out. We got interest three times what we were actually selling. So
Wow.
now and we actually drove our interest rate down to a fairly low percentage. We met with a lot of these investors, and they really like the PE admin space. They like the revenue retention. It's kind of like a SaaS model. More importantly, they're betting big on private markets, and mission critical service providers like Gen2 hold a lot of interest. So you saw kind of what we're talking about here in terms of growth, criticality in the industry actually get validated in the credit market.
Yeah.
Who
No,
told us they
that's a
like the story.
point. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean, and it makes me immediately think, Steve, of just the whole democratization discussion,
Yeah.
right? If
No.
private markets are going retail and, you're going to be able to get them in your 401k plan
Yeah.
eventually, right? It's just a whole new ball game, right? In terms of growth, right? A
Yeah.
massive ball game. How
Yeah.
about 25, Steve? Tell me, as we finish up here, what are you thinking about for next year as a firm? What's important? What are kind of some of the most important pillars, at Gen2 for 2025?
Yeah. Well, look, first and foremost, the good news for Gen2 is we're financially strong and we get to take that strength and reinvest in the business. It's still a service business, George. It's still people. Technology is important, but recruiting and retaining good people is job one. And so we'll continue to focus on that. As I shared, we did two large transactions. I'm a big believer in integrating transactions. That's how you really get the client experience to be optimal. So
Yep.
we will be integrating. There are, the rumor mill has got that there'll be a couple of interesting, firms coming to market. We will look at those. We're a player where we think it adds strategic value. So we will look at those. I think the bigger focus for us, you mentioned democratization and retail. So, we actually got on the retail journey fairly early. We're partnered up with some of the larger retail players and have really had a great experience with them. And retail is a good size of our book now. It's a scale play for us, but we're a scale provider. I see that continuing. It may come out in different products, feeder funds or conduits, now going into non-traded, 40 Act funds, even traded 40 Act funds. So, I think we're watching that and we're starting to look, in terms of where our role is in that. So
Yeah.
I think that's a line of focus for us. We have a good private credit book, but that business is just growing like a weed. So we've already made investments this year. We'll continue to invest heavily in private credit capability. That's people and technology, and build that out. I think those are the big things for us
Yeah.
for 25.
Yeah. I mean, well, real quick, what's the view you have maybe on APAC, Asia, right? I mean, everything I read is you're just seeing parts of Asia booming. Is that something you guys will just kind of keep your eyes on?
We
Uh,
have one eye open. I think, George, for us, I think the interesting port of call is Singapore right now.
yes.
And so we do have so I'm sharing with you, we do have an eye open. We have not had much demand pull from our client base. I think Asia is early to private markets as compared to both the United States and Europe. But, being a global player as Gen2 is, it's likely that we'll put a flag up.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I look at Singapore, I look at Abu Dhabi, right?
Yeah.
There's a few places, right?
Yes.
Well,
You're right.
listen, I want to thank you as always. One, I want to thank you. You guys have been a great client of ours for an awfully long time, and I think we just keep looking for, different ways to work together. So I'm very appreciative of that. And really excited for you about what you're doing with Gen 2 and the future. It's been a really great story to watch. So I just want to thank you for joining me today.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the partnership and the friendship. So thank you, and happy holidays to you and your family.
Yes, you also, Stephen.